All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob for Smirking Gun Reviews, and we're back with another episode of my series called Final Viewings, where I pretty much think about the movies in my life that I know I will never see again unless I force myself to. So I'm watching it one last time and I'm making a video basically as a review. Hopefully people will want to watch the movie maybe, or just hear about the oddities that I've seen, and also just kind of a video thing, record for myself, so that I don't really have to see these movies again. And today we're talking about 1989's rare to find Gleaming the Cube. It's not rare right now. You can see it for free on Amazon Prime if you have Amazon Prime. But yeah, this movie came out in January of 1989. I was in 8th fucking grade. It stars Christian Slater, and this was like a huge time. I mean, a lot of the late 80s, early 90s, most of the 90s was a lot of Christian Slater. But in this year, man, you couldn't throw a rock without hitting him, because this comes out in January, and then in March, Heathers came out. And then in November or December, The Wizard with him and Fred Savage came out. So it was a big year for him, but I don't think any of those movies actually did. Heathers was like a cult hit, but I don't think any of these movies really did that great. But this movie, where do I begin? When I was actually watching this just a few minutes ago, well, about 20 minutes in, I was like, man, what am I going to talk about? Did I even like this movie? Yes, 14-year-old me thought this movie, I think I was 14, loved this movie. But the thing is I didn't see it when it first came out. I think I saw it more like when I was 15 or so, because I was being raised in a very religious household, and so nonconformity and that kind of thing, like the whole skateboarding kind of thing, was forbidden. That kind of lifestyle, the not doing what you're told, rebellious side, was pretty much, squashed all the time. So I didn't see this right away. I remember when I got it on videotape at this place where they had it used, and I bought it for myself. I think I don't know how I paid for it, to be honest with you. But I got my hands on it, and I watched this movie a lot. Christian Slater pretty much was like the poster boy of late 80s, 90s rebellion. This movie is, okay, so I loved it then. But it's, okay, so watching it now, yeah, this is the last time I need to see this movie. It's fucking bad. But bad in a good way. In that way that you just can't believe it. There's shit in this that I can't believe is going on. I don't know if anybody's ever done a rip tracks or whatever. This is just astoundingly so let's just, okay, so the term Gleaming the Cube. In the movie, one of the characters says it's the place that you go to when you're skating, when you just let go. There's more of a technical term to it, but I basically associate it to with, how on the show Archer, he's always taking the highway to the danger zone. So, well, it's after you've taken the highway to the danger zone and you've actually gotten to the danger zone, it's what happens to you when you get to the danger zone and what you do when you get to the danger zone, essentially. There's another term for it that's basically a porn term. Has to do with women's anatomy and bald heads. And then there's yet another term that's basically referencing this movie, where you fail at something so spectacularly, you are gleaming the cube. So anyway, let's start talking about this movie. So yeah, like I said, this movie was the shit for me. I mean, but I was 14. What the hell did I know? Christian Slater is, you can see how, you could like this guy as growing up. I mean, he was cool. He had the hair, he had the t-shirts and the look and everything. And this movie also has Tony Hawk actually in it. Back in those days, super fucking young, man. And they're running around, they bribe like some pilot to fly them around to see where the empty pools are and shit. They're living the non-conformity lifestyle, man. They're selling skateboards in this movie, and they're selling a lot of stuff in this movie. There's lots of product placement from the different kinds of skateboard culture items to Pizza Hut. Like one of the characters works at Pizza Hut, and they make sure you see that a lot. Disneyland's like in the backdrop of this. In fact, Disneyland has one of the greatest shots in this movie has to do with Disneyland, but it's also like one of the darkest moments of the movie. It's kind of like, that was kind of cool. And I don't know if they did that on purpose or not. But the director of this movie, he basically just does TV, and it shows. This whole movie shows. It feels like a made-for-TV movie. In fact, later on a few years after this movie came out, and I didn't have my VHS copy anymore, and I was looking for it. It took me forever to find it because they changed the title of it to A Brother's Justice. So if that doesn't sound like a TV movie title, I don't know what is. So the plot of this movie is Christian Slater's a skater. He's got the whole skate or die mentality, which, for that time, man, he was everywhere. Oh, and truth be told, I have really good balance, but I couldn't skateboard to save my life. I tried over and over and over, and I failed. So it's probably one of the reasons also why I like this movie, is because it was like, I'd watch this movie and be able to dream about things I couldn't do. So like for me, these guys were like superheroes. So Christian Slater, he's the skate or die kid. His father's played by Ed Lauter. So here's the X-Files moment of this episode. Ed Lauter was in one of it may be the worst X-File. It was called Space. It was from season 1, and it was just so bad. Ed Lauter's a good actor, but he plays this like astronaut in it and whatever. It's just not good. But Ed Lauter plays Christian Slater's dad. Christian Slater plays Brian. And then he has an adoptive brother named Vin, who is like, outstanding at school and everything. And so Brian just kind of feels like, he's the real son, but the black sheep of the family, and Vin is the adopted one and the pride of the family. But it's like, they like each other. Vin and Brian like each other a lot. They give each other crap and they feel like real brothers. And that's, one of the good things about this, except it just doesn't last because of what happens later. And so Vin, he has this job where his girlfriend works. She's a Vietnamese actress. They work in this like store, that's like video store kind of place. It's a store for Vietnamese people, mostly. And her father's like this colonel from Vietnam. And so he does like a lot of social work for his country, like sending supplies and medicine and stuff over there. But what Vin accidentally finds out is that not only is like he's sending supplies, like medical supplies over there, but like this other guy that he works with named Longdale is like also like sending guns and stuff. And so they're doing like illegal gun stuff there. And this is like where the movie could have like if it focused on this mostly or done more with it, it could have been like this kind of interesting story about people that come here that are trying to help out their country, and how they're being used by, American agendas and interests, people just looking to profit off of their misery. But they don't really do much with it, except that the white guy that finds out about, that sees Vin, because he sneaks into this like warehouse and he gets caught. And so they're torturing. Well, the one guy, whose name is Bobby Nguyen. Now I forget the actor's name, but he's mostly known for, I would say, he's one of the 3 big bad guys in Big Trouble in Little China. His name was Rain. So he wasn't the cool lightning guy, and he wasn't the guy that like puffed out and blew up. He was the 3rd one. So he's like doing this like torture with a towel type of situation on Vin, and off camera he accidentally kills him with this torture. And so now they've accidentally killed this kid, and so they don't know what to do. because he was an honest kid, but they were going to let him go, but the guy accidentally kills him. So what they do is they make it look like he hung himself in the hotel room that they were at. So the next day, the maid comes into the hotel room, and this is that shot I was talking about. So she goes into the hotel room, and she opens up the curtains, and you see like the Matterhorn or whatever it is at Disneyland. You see like the monorail going by, and it's this like pretty cool shot looking, because it is this hotel that they filmed it at is right there. So it's like you're actually looking out at Disneyland, and so you're seeing this like nice cool shot of like this fantasy, like amusement park shot. And then she turns around and just goes, ah, and screams, and then you see the dead kid hanging in the bathroom. And I just thought that was great. I mean, it kind of is the contrast of, happy place, suicide. So the cops come and they take the, they have to, Stephen Bauer plays this cop named Lucero. Now, Stephen Bauer, I associate him with three things that come to my mind when I hear Stephen Bauer. Scarface, the Skinamax type movie with Pamela Anderson called Snapdragon, and then he played Don Eladio in Breaking Bad, which I love him in. And everybody in Breaking Bad is great. As Don Eladio in Breaking Bad, he was fucking amazing. And this is him in his younger days. This is after Scarface and everything. He's a decent actor. And so I was like, oh, all right, cool. I like him. I like Christian Slater. So he has to tell the family that their son died. And Brian, they tell Brian after school, they pull him out of school. And so he doesn't take it well. And he starts immediately trying to look into his brother's suicide, because his brother wasn't the type that would kill himself. So he finds this piece of paper that his brother had this, it's written in Vietnamese, and the only American words are WMS. So he starts looking around and into it, and he goes to like to the hotel. He goes around trying to find people that can translate this piece of paper. And of course, one of them is friends with this Bobby Nguyen guy who like starts following him around. And so he follows him to the hotel, and he doesn't get anything there, but he sees that he's being followed, so he lets this guy drive away, this Bobby Nguyen guy drive away, and then he does his best Marty McFly impersonation, and he's like hanging on the back of a bus. So he follows this guy, and he ends up sneaking into the back of this guy's car, this Nguyen guy's car, while he's on the payphone. And so Nguyen, he pops in this tape that's like the Vietnamese version of Nowhere to Run To song playing out. And he takes him out into the middle of this like little forest where Nguyen meets Vin's girlfriend's dad, the one who runs the video store, and this Longdale guy. And they get into a fight because, okay, get a load of this. So Nguyen sees this guy, Brian, wanting to know what's on this piece of paper, and it's like medical supplies. And so he gets panicked and starts following Brian. That's all he has is this piece of paper. That's all. With some writing that says medical supplies. So he gets paranoid and like calls this meeting. He can't find this kid. Oh no, this kid has a piece of paper with words on it that I don't think there's really any evidence on it. It's just some words about medical supplies, who knows? So he calls this meeting for the guys running the show. And he goes out there and he threatens him. He's like, I want $50,000 and a ticket to Bangkok. I want out of here. So they don't want to give it to him. They're like telling him to calm down. Don't worry, this kid's got nothing. And in this scene, they shoot and kill this guy over a piece of paper that really doesn't have anything going for it. And so he's murdered, and Christian Slater's in the back of his car seeing this. And so they leave him there. They put the body in the trunk and they take off, and they leave Christian Slater in the car. They haven't seen him, and he gets out. He brings the cops. They don't believe him. Lucero, Stephen Bauer's character, kind of does. He's like the guy that's trying to help Brian, but it's mostly like, trying to help him get over his brother's death and not to feel guilty about it. And so there's this long period where it's just kind of like nothing really happening. Him trying to like get near his brother's girlfriend, so she can't be around him because the way he looks and the way he acts, and his parents don't want her around American boys. So he like totally just dumps his nonconformist life. He starts dressing all preppy and stuff, cuts his hair, takes down all his skateboard posters and everything off the wall. All his friends are looking at him like, okay, so he's already considered a freak by the normal kids in school. So now his group of friends think, oh, what the hell's wrong with him? And even the normal kids are looking at him like he's a freak for changing. So it's like he becomes a conformist, but now but because he tried to be a conformist from being a nonconformist, he's still a nonconformist. Except his friends think he's a conformist, so he's not liked really by anyone, sort of. His parents love it, and this gives him the opening, because if you change your hair, if you cut your hair and you start wearing nice clothes, you can get a date with a Vietnamese girl whose parents are racist. So he goes to the house and he starts dating her, and he starts asking a lot of questions about her father, which leads her to be like, why are you asking me all these questions? And you know, just slowly but surely, he starts like investigating further into her dad's business. He finds out that the WMS is this guy well, God, I forgot his name already. The white guy that's running the guns. Let's just call him that. Gun runner, white guy. So he, Longdale. So he goes to his factory, and he ends up like sneaking in, because there's no security really apparently at this place that has a bunch of guns in his warehouse. He breaks in, he finds the guns, and they immediately hard cut away to the Longdale talking to the Vietnamese colonel like, somebody found the guns. It could be just some junkie. We get them from time to time. I guess because it's supposed to be a medical warehouse, the junkies are always breaking in, stealing stuff. So, oh boy, this is where it's going to start going off the rails. So, keep it together. So then Brian, like, he goes back to the factory. He gets he siphons some gas out of his dad's car, and he puts a gas can in his backpack, and he skateboards back to the factory. He makes some noise so that the security guards come out of their little trailer, and then he starts throwing like firecrackers into the security trailer. So they come back and they go into the trailer, and then he locks them in and like takes the wheel brakes off, the emergency brake type things, the blocks that are holding the wheels together, and he pushes the trailer out of the way. So they're rolling down the road, and he takes this gas can and puts it on his skateboard and rolls it to a propane tank and blows up the propane tank. There's this huge explosion. Doesn't do anything to the factory, just blows up this propane tank. And so he has the Los Angeles Rams hat of the colonel's, the Vietnamese guy that's running his side of the business. He stole the guy's hat, and he leaves it there at the crime scene so that the white guy, Longdale, will think that he's in on it. Speaking of the Los Angeles Rams, this is when they were the Los Angeles Rams back in 1989 or 88, whenever this was filmed. So that puts in context for some things. So there's like Los Angeles Rams stuff all over this. So honestly, is it really that dated? They're the Los Angeles Rams now. So, no, it's still dated. So now the white guy's like asking like, oh, well, you know, this could happen to you too. So he's starting to question his relationship with the colonel, but why? He just found a hat there that says the Los Angeles Rams. It could be anybody's hat. It just so happens to be a hat that guy also has. But why would he blow up a propane tank? What does he get out of it? They're working together. But it's like they're not like part of some army. They're just a couple of guys. They have a few thugs working for themselves, but it's not like they're the Joker who has these endless supplies of henchmen. So there's like no point to this guy having really any doubts about their partnership. But immediately Lucero goes to Brian and he's like, I know you did it. And instead of denying it, he's like, yeah, so, I wanted to rattle some cages. Well, okay, then you arrest him. If you want to protect him, he just admitted to the crime. So you arrest him and you put him in jail for at least protective custody. but they don't. So we get to like this big climax that we've been building to, I guess. So they end up, gosh, how does this even go down? So Brian sets up this thing where Longdale is gonna be at the Colonel's house. And so he, after being a conformist, he goes to his friend's house who lives, okay, so this is one of the cooler parts that I remember, like really remember as being when I was a kid, is that one of his friends, his bedroom or like workspace or whatever is in an old nuclear bomb shelter. So I always thought that was really cool when I was a kid. So he's down there and they're like building him this special deck. And they're calling the gang, put the gang together, you know. So all the skateboarders are all like supposed to like meet up and help him take down this guy. And they call Tony Hawk who has like 3 phones in his bedroom. One looks like the bat phone. And so they all meet up at the Pizza Hut to mobilize the skateboarders together. And then Christian Slater goes to the Colonel's house, where he and the Longdale guy are having this like big argument, and they're like, no more, you know, we were trying to get out of this war and now it's just too much and we're out, like we're done. And the Longdale guy ends up taking the Colonel's daughter, the one that Brian's brother was dating and he was seeing, hostage with a gun, which is where Brian gets on his skateboard and rolls through the backyard and up and does like one of these basically kind of ollies, like a hardcore ollie right through the pane glass window and crashes into the guy so that he drops the gun. But he shoots the Colonel and he kills him. He kills the Colonel and that guy's like spasming out like, oh! And he takes the girl hostage. So jumping through the plate glass window did nothing because he still gets away and he's killed the Colonel and he has the girl and he takes another Asian guy hostage, Vietnamese guy, sorry, in the police car. So a stolen police car. So yes, this is going to work out great because the police guy went through the front. This guy goes around the back. So the Lucero comes in, and of course, him and Brian get into this car where they don't have the keys to the car, so they have to break it off and whatever. So the chase is on. So Brian and him are chasing after this Longdale guy, and it ends in this like scene where all of the skateboarders are at the top of the hill, this like big hill, and there's a Pizza Hut truck. And the guy Longdale looks at this scene as he's driving up and he's like, oh my God. He's like, drive through them. Now, one of the funniest parts about this is that you've got Tony Hawk, one of the greatest skateboarders of all time. And instead of being one of the guys on skateboards, he's the one driving the Pizza Hut truck. You have Tony Hawk, you don't have him skating, you have him driving a Pizza Hut truck. Talk about selling out. You got him in a Pizza Hut truck. I'm not saying he really sold out, but it just seems like, they're really trying to sell shit to you in this movie. And, like the airwalks and everything. So you've got your biggest skateboarder in a Pizza Hut truck. Skateboard and Pizza Hut, they're like this, man. So they come, like past him. They do nothing. Okay, this whole thing does nothing except get Brian to make the guy change direction to where he's going. So Longdale like ends up on the highway. He cuts this guy off in a Corvette. And so Brian gets to the Corvette. He's like, that guy wasn't even a cop. Let's go after him. And the guy's just like, sure. And hits his Corvette, goes full blast. Again, he's doing his Marty McFly impression down the highway on this guy's Corvette, where Longdale ends up crashing and getting out of the car. And he's got his gun waving around. And he's threatening the girl, and Christian Slater does this crazy skateboard stunt and crashes into the guy and stops him, and that's it. At the end, it's just, they've learned to change and share and adapt, and Brian, starts getting along better with his parents, it sounds like, and they're you know, moving on from his brother's death. And I know I'm kind of glossing over really quickly, but that's it. And oh my God, is this movie? I do recommend you watch this at least once. It just for sheer shits and giggles. So I now never have to see this movie again. It's probably one of those movies Christian Slater and just about everybody else involved probably watches in the same way that I have, where you're just kind of like, oh my God, what did I just watch? But it is fantastically bad. So I do recommend you see it at least once. This is my final time. I hope when I watch this 10 years down the road, I still am satisfied with not having to see it again. So anyway, if you like this video, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Just one last thing. I know the Happy Time Murders came out. And if you'd rather, you know, if you don't know about that, you know, if you want to see that movie, you can watch my review for another crazy puppet movie called Meet the Feebles. It's on the channel. It was a crazy, raunchy puppet movie in 1989, same year this came out. Directed by Peter Jackson of The Lord of the Rings. So if you want to check out that video before you go see Happy Time Murders and waste your money on that piece of shit. Yeah. So anyway, this is Rob for Sparking Gun Review saying we'll see you on the next video and have a great day. Bye.